Hey guys, this is Jay Calder with Jay Unboxing here with a fight preview for Tim Tszyu versus Tony Harrison. And before we get into a little bit of this fight info here, let me know what you guys think down in the comments section. Would love to hear all your picks, your bets, all that good stuff. Love to hear it all. Leave that down in the comments section below. And of course, be sure to like and subscribe. It greatly helps out. A little bit of fight info here. We have Tim Tszyu taking on Tony Harrison. This will be at the QUDOS Bank Arena in Sydney, Australia. Airing live on Showtime. This will be in the junior middleweight division. Now, in terms of my initial thoughts, my initial thoughts are this could be a pretty damn good fight. If you strip away everything else, what could be at stake, the risks, who's likely to win, whatever, if you just look at matching up two guys stylistically and trying to put on the best fight, this is going to be a pretty good one. I think they both are going to mesh pretty well. Both have a little bit of kind of both sides of the coin, if you will, to add to an interesting fight. They both have some skills, of course. You might argue Harrison's maybe a bit more skilled, and certainly both can fight a little bit. Again, you might argue Tszyu is a little bit more of that brawler type. But they both have enough to balance each other out so that they can produce the sort of fight that I think can be pretty exciting. And I think that's kind of the first thought that I had before even having the next thought, which was that Tim Tszyu definitely didn't need this fight. When you look at the circumstances that led to this fight, it really just wasn't something he had to do. He's in line to face Jermell Charlo. That's the fight that they start working towards the middle portion of last year and eventually signed for the beginning of 2023. Due to an injury, Charlo has to then withdraw, and you think, well, Tszyu either waits on the sideline, of course, or picks up a stay-busy fight to try and, just keep sharp while he's waiting. Instead, he faces a top 10 contender, a former world champion in his own right, and someone who legitimately is Tszyu's toughest test on paper. You don't hear about that very often, and that certainly was one of my initial thoughts, where a guy is going into a championship fight, which will be the toughest of his career, against a pound-for-pound fighter. For some reason, that fight gets postponed, and then the substitute fight, the sort of fight that's brought in to kind of salvage a date or keep a fighter busy, whatever it is an equally impressive opponent in many respects, and still the toughest opponent this fighter in Tim Tszyu has ever faced. You just don't hear about that very often, so kudos to him because he definitely didn't need to do it. That being said, he does have some things going for him, of course. He's the younger man, perhaps the fresher man, and this fight will be taking place in Australia, which was another thought I had of just how will that play into this fight. Idealistically, it doesn't, and no one even notices where the fight is other than who they're cheering for. But the truth of the matter is, it has over and over again in boxing proved to be true that home field advantage can matter. Does it spur on their man a little bit more? Possibly. Does it make Harrison shrink a bit more? Probably not in my opinion, but possibly. And again, how does it affect the judging? And all of this was sort of what came to mind when I thought of this encounter. But in any event, those were kind of my initial thoughts about this fight. And in terms of what's at stake, for the most part, it's about as much as can be at stake without a title on the line. You have both of them kind of looking to prove something at different ends of their career, but they're both looking to prove something. And of course, that shot at Jermell Charlo to some degree is on the line as well. So you certainly have a lot of stakes here, if you will, for just relevancy at 154 pounds, at least short term, because again, the loser is going to have to go back of the line, and this is a fairly stacked division that could be getting even more stacked in the coming months or even the coming year. As much as can be on the line really is in this fight. You have, again, in Tszyu, someone who is looking to prove himself, who, again, is in the toughest fight of his career at this point. That cannot be overstated. He really is in a fight where this will prove exactly, or at least to some degree, what he has to offer. You have in Harrison a guy who's been there, done that, has been a world champion, but again, he needs to be able to beat a guy like Tim Tszyu, who's kind of still on the rise a bit, if he is to make a mark in boxing going forward. Neither of these guys can really afford to lose, especially short term. Again, they're not ancient and certainly not Tim Tszyu, but you look at them and think, short term, to make a mark at junior middleweight, you need to beat this guy in front of you, certainly. So that certainly adds an element of stakes to this fight that I think is very interesting going into this contest. Now, for the winner, if you're Tim Tszyu, you get what you already had to some degree. That's Jermell Charlo, which again is why this is such a risky choice for Tszyu, and good on him for taking it, because again, I think it can make for a very interesting and kind of impactful fight. But I guess to add to that a little bit, I would say that it's not just the Jermell Charlo fight. Yes, of course, that's what's at the end of this one, so to speak, but it's also that, again, that legitimacy, that relevancy at junior middleweight, and that ability to kind of bring your brand, which has grown tremendously in Australia, to that world stage. You did that a little bit by debuting in America last year, but this would be a completely different stamp of approval. If you're able to take that show on the road with the support that you already have, it certainly is going to show just how much of a budding star that you are. And again, you can win this fight and potentially go into that Charlo fight and do well. On top of that, that's certainly going to speak volumes for just how far you've come and how much further you can go in terms of your star power. For Harrison, again, it's a chance to knock off a young gun and move right back into the title picture, which of course, if you're the American, that's what you're looking to do. You're not too old, don't get me wrong, but you've been around, and you've lost 3 times, and the 3 times you've lost, you've been stopped. You could say what you want about records mattering or not mattering or whatever the case may be, but the fact is that's your resume against some of the best guys or even some of the fringe guys at the top of the sport. So you need to be able to prove that you're there, that you're actually a legitimate threat, and that you deserve that shot that you're of course looking for, because you are 1-1 against Charlo. So there's a possibility that this kind of puts you in that space for a trilogy, which again is certainly going to be great for your career if you can get that done. I would also throw in for Tszyu, it does help you build the Charlo fight to some degree. If you can pick off another decent name and maybe even a better name than you have ever in your career at this point, and even in a better way than Jermell Charlo has when he's struggled with Harrison, I think it sells the fight a bit more, because to some degree you could have argued that Tszyu taking on Charlo when he should have, or when it was planned, might have been a bit early in terms of building the fight. This could definitely help build a fight if Tszyu can pull through it. And for the loser, with Tszyu, for example, it kind of shoots your credibility right in the foot. This is your toughest fight on paper, to me anyway. Again, you lose this one, it just doesn't look good. It looks like you were all hype, fighting the majority of your career in Australia and eating through the sort of people that people would expect a contender to be able to eat through. The moment you're tested against someone who actually can, put the fire to you a little bit, if you happen to lose that fight, it certainly doesn't bode well for you, doesn't bode well for the public's confidence in you. So it's certainly a fight that I think Tszyu needs to win, as most fights are, of course, fights that people need to win, but for that reason specifically. For Harrison, it could be gatekeeper time if you're losing this fight. I hate to say it, I don't like to, again, kind of box in fighters because they have surprised us in the past, but you have to be honest. You've lost a few times at the top, always by stoppage, and now it's to a rising contender. It's really hard to bounce back from that fully. And that makes it, again, even doubly tough for both of them, because 154 pounds has a bit of decent activity now, and it might be hard to work your way through all those fighters to get another crack at the title, or to even get in position to earn a shot at the title, because there are certainly some sharks swimming at junior middleweight. But in any event, let me know what you guys think. Would love your views on this one. Let me know down in the comments. Please be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter at jcalderon_JOB. You can email me at junboxing@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you there as well. Be sure to check out my prediction for TSZYU versus Tony Harrison in the description box below. And check out junboxing.com for news, rankings, schedule results, betting odds, all that good stuff. And as always, until next time.